And so after the Napoleonic Wars finished, there was major change within those nations that participated, namely England, France, Holland and Germany, and they all owed a lot of money to the Rothschilds and friends for financing those wars. But that wasn't the end of it, because we know that in 1806 Nathan Rothschild, when he received the wealth of King Wilhelm in London, he put £3,000 of gold into the East India Company. And so this combination of war and profits and debt continued as they conquered India, and then they took the opium from India to China, and that created the Opium Wars. And by the time that Nathan Rothschild died in 1836, we know that the Opium Wars were just about to begin. But it wasn't just conquest and war and finance that they make money out of, but they also wanted to own the gold and the diamonds and the wealth in the world. And so let's have a look now at the expansion of the industry that the Rothschilds controlled.
Of course, throughout the 19th century, the five branches also made many private investments beyond their government loans. In 1868, they purchased one of the most valuable wine estates in France. In 1875, they acquired a minority stake in the Suez Canal from Egypt, while in 1883 they funded the development of the first major oil well in the Old World, challenging the Rockefeller monopoly in America. They also became majority shareholders in the diamond monopoly of De Beers and in Rio Tinto, one of the world's largest mining companies.
Both Rio Tinto and De Beers became major mining companies for gold and diamonds in South Africa and Rhodesia after the Boer War, which took place at the turn of the 20th century. And we know that the Rothschilds funded the Boer War and that their agents were Cecil Rhodes and Lord Milner from the City of London. And when you look at South Africa and Rhodesia today, you'd have to say that both of those nations have been looted and left abandoned by the Rothschilds. And meanwhile, back in Europe, we know that the Rothschilds were building mansions outside Paris, for example. And we see there the Chateau de Ferrières, and also in Venice and Frankfurt. And meanwhile, back in Buckinghamshire, the wealth of the Rothschilds was showing there by the mansions that they built. And for example, there in the 1850s, we know that Baron Mayer Amshelty Rothschild built Mentmore Towers. And he was also known as the High Sheriff of Buckinghamshire. He also bought nearby Ascot House, which after a while he sold to Leopold de Rothschild. And in the 1880s, we know that Lionel's son Alfred built Halton House. And also Ferdinand built a place there in Wadston. So let's have a look now at the house at Wadston.
Wadston is a phenomenon in lots of ways. I mean, who would expect to find a French chateau in the middle of the English countryside? And it's very much the vision of one man, Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild, who acquired the estate in 1874 and set about creating a place in the country where he could bring friends and family to entertain them at weekends. And so Wadston really sprung from that. But he chose Buckinghamshire because he knew the county very well. Other members of his family had already started to build the most extraordinary houses in the vicinity. In fact, Buckinghamshire was often referred to as Rothschildshire in the 19th century because so many members of the family lived here.
It was an extraordinary phenomenon because the Rothschild family, having made a lot of money in the 19th century and having come from the ghetto in Frankfurt with nothing, decided to build on a huge scale throughout Europe. Most of those houses have now gone. Wadston remains as the one with its collections intact, in fact growing.
One of the really astonishing things about this house is that Ferdinand began from scratch. There was nothing on this bare hill when he started out, and the house was assembled and the grounds all around it in an astonishingly short space of time.
Ferdinand held his first house party in May 1880, 6 years after he'd bought the estate from the Duke of Marlborough. Wadston was renowned for the quality of the hospitality and the entertainment that was given. Ferdinand's guests came from all walks of life, but the real pinnacle was his royal visitors, Queen Victoria and the Prince of Wales, who visited on numerous occasions.
Numerous occasions.